Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to catch up on a bunch of Battlefield news pertaining to Battlefield 4 CTE, the Final Stand expansion, and Battlefield Hardline. Now it's been a little while since I've talked about CTE, and there has been a few patches implemented since I have. Now if you're not familiar with CTE, it stands for Community Test Environment, and frankly there's a lot of people out there that should go and download the new version. Unfortunately, it is a huge download file. It's like 37 gigabytes, and the last one really killed off a lot of the servers, and we need to get more players on there to test out CTE because it's the latest version of Battlefield. You can test out all the new balancing, all the cool new netcode improvements, the visual recoil fix that has not been yet added to the vanilla version of Battlefield, and let me just tell you, it is so much better than the vanilla version of Battlefield. We will be getting a patch for the vanilla version of Battlefield eventually, but it's really important that we actually play out these new changes and test it out before it actually gets finalized and put into a patch, just to make sure that everything's working out well. Now let's talk about some of the really cool changes that have come in the last two updates to CTE. First thing is very subtle, but if you've been using the same site for a long time, you're going to see some fun little improvements. First of all, on the left side is the CTE improved RDS, which is smaller and a bit more refined. It's also supposedly brighter, so you should be able to track it a bit better in the sun and while shooting through explosions. Another thing that's being added to CTE is a classic mode server preset. So basically you're going to be able to search for classic mode game types, and what you will find is a mode that has no 3D spotting. This can be very exciting to a lot of people. In fact, I'm pretty pumped to try it out myself. There's also going to be no kill cam, so if somebody snipes you from far away, it's not going to be too easy to locate them. There still will be radar, and spotting will be possible on the minimap. Friendly fire is going to be on, and for spawning on squad mates, you can only spawn on the squad leader. There's also not going to be any health regen, so medics are going to be much more important. Now if you've already played CTE, you'll notice that soldier movement feels a little bit snappier. This is like the very fundamentals of how you move around in Battlefield, what the acceleration is like, and it's been tweaked quite a bit, and I gotta say it's a lot better. Now in a nice attempt to reduce the rage factor in Battlefield 4, hit effects have been moved to the server side rather than client side. So when you shoot your tank at a helicopter and you get that big explosion and then the helicopter flies away completely unharmed, that's because the hit effects are on client side, and on server side your shot actually missed. So now they've switched the hit effects to server side, which means that if you get a dusting as they call it, or if you dust on a helicopter, that's not going to make the hit effect anymore, so it's just going to look like you actually missed the chopper. Also, this is going to apply to blood effects when hitting soldiers, so no more false positives when going for those headshots with snipers. Now, in an attempt to reduce the one frame deaths, a lot of guns have had their maximum damage lowered by about 1. I mean, there's been a little bit more tweaking than that. Each gun might have gotten some special treatment, but this is basically going to reduce the 4-shot killability with a lot of assault rifles and the 3-shot killability with a lot of guns such as the Scar H. This is going to mean that there's going to be quite a bit of weapon balancing, and you're going to have to pick up your favorite guns again and see if they're still your favorite. This is a very interesting addition to the game, and I'm not opposed to different damage models. However, I will say that Battlefield 3 had pretty much an identical damage model to BF4, and I didn't really get any one frame deaths, or at least a lot of deaths where I felt like there was something going on with the server lag. So if they really have exhausted all of their options to try and prevent that one frame death situation, then I suppose rebalancing half the guns in the game is an alright fix. It's just going to be very interesting, and it's going to take a little while getting used to it. Adding on the requirement of an extra shot to kill your opponents means that each magazine of your weapon becomes less and less useful, and you're going to need to reload more and more, so it could shift up the playstyle quite a bit. Now in the Conquest game modes in CTE, they've actually added a round start timer very similar to what Hardline had in the game. This is going to prevent players with faster loading computers from getting all the good vehicles in the start, and also having just a disjointed start. Perhaps one team has 5 players that load in really quickly, they can go start capping points before the other team even spawns in at all. So this is just one of the many fixes that they're actually borrowing from the guys over at Visceral, who I've got to say have got some very good ideas about Battlefield. And speaking of Visceral and Hardline, there have been some pretty big developments. First of all, it has been delayed until Q1 of 2015, or at least early 2015. The reason for this delay is to give Visceral more time to make it feel more like an actual cops and robbers game and not just a reskinning of Battlefield 4. I totally agree with this delay, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing what they actually do. They've already listed a bunch of changes that they're adding to the game, but I would love to see maybe some even more drastic changes. I mean, what cops and robbers game has a transport helicopter with a minigun on the side, or maybe a police helicopter that's destroying vehicles from the air? How about the fact that everybody's running around with parachutes? I mean, there's some things that are very classic to the Battlefield game mode, but also seem very, very out of place in a cops and robbers game. One thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing them change up is the heads-up display. They're working on completely redesigning it to separate it from other Battlefield games and really make it feel much more like its own thing. They're also significantly reducing the amount of explosives in the game. Generally, when you think cops and robbers, you think maybe a few flashbangs as a SWAT team infiltrates a house or something like that. You don't think like tons of explosions all the time. So I'm very interested to see what they're doing to reduce the explosive gameplay. And this is just music to my ears. I mean, people have been complaining about grenade spam and explosive spam in Battlefield since day one. And honestly, if they have a good excuse now to change things up enough to really make their own game, they can fix a lot of these core issues. In addition to that, they're trying to make the maps more interactive by adding things like doors that you can open and close all over the place, radios, ammo lockers, and more. Now, I'm not really sure what they mean by ammo lockers, but it sounds like there's going to be stationary places that you can refill your ammo, not necessarily having to rely on the support class. So this could be a cool way, again, from changing things up so it doesn't feel so much like a Battlefield game. Again, what kind of police game is there a guy running around resupplying people with ammo? That's more of a wartime situation. So it would be amazing if they actually replaced that whole concept perhaps with ammo lockers. That could also add a lot more value for actually capturing certain spawn points, because maybe they hold the ammo and that's the only way you can rearm your team. Improving audio situational awareness is also top priority for the Visceral team, and that's very cool too, because if you think about it, a cops and robbers game, if you're storming a house or moving around a neighborhood, you're definitely going to be listening for audio cues. In a wartime environment, when there's artillery strikes and tons of fire everywhere, it's much harder to actually locate your enemies through sound, but in a cops and robbers game, it's very important. So making that a priority is something I can definitely agree with. Now, for the most part, the community seems to have responded really well to the delay of Hardline. Not so much that they don't want to play a new Battlefield game, but because it did feel very much like Battlefield 4, and certainly an extra 6 months or however long that they actually take to improve the game could definitely make it feel like its own title, its own offshoot from Battlefield, much like the Bad Company series was. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually quite excited to see what comes of these changes. I think we can look back on a lot of Battlefield games and think, what if they had an extra 6 months to actually work on the game before launching it? Well, this is the case with the actual Hardline series this time around, so hopefully we get a very solid title. Now, another interesting area of the Battlefield community has been the relentless pursuit to try and figure out the Phantom Initiate passcode. Now, if you haven't seen the previous Phantom Trainee passcode video, I'll put a link in the video description or a link on the page here, and you can click on that and figure out how to unlock the first 2 phases of this. Once those phases have been unlocked, it's going to ask you for another password, which is this right here on the screen. You can copy and paste this from the video description as well. Now, if you want to figure out how Reddit user Smunot actually figured out this password, there is going to be a link on Reddit that shows you his description. I read through it and I cannot understand a bit of it. It's some pretty high level math, but I certainly appreciate the fact that there are some high level code breakers out there willing to spend so much time figuring out this password, because now we have the opportunity to unlock some potentially very cool camos, and I'll be doing a video about that later. So that pretty much wraps it up for this news update video. If you guys have not played CTE and you own Battlefield 4 Premium, go download it, go give it a try. Obviously, you can only play it on the PC version of the game, but please try it out, fill up those servers. I want to play on servers, and a lot of the time, there's just nothing to play. So, as always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.